Hey everyone, welcome to our final YouTube Live of the year. I don't know if you could hear that fun, snazzy music that Aaron Reister had going before our event, but we're going to cut in a little bit short here, a little bit early, because we have some little homework, pre-work for you guys to do. I'm going to turn it over to Aaron.
Hey, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. We are, like Sarah said, this is our last YouTube live event of the year, so we're excited to be here. We do have, we posted in the chat as well as on the screen with the countdown. We had a link for you guys to fill out some form, just so we can get some information from you, your knowledge of Google Sheets, and kind of we'll work with some of that data later as we're kind of showing some of the cool things you can do with it. So I'll throw that link back up there so you can kind of touch base with it and fill out the form for us so that we can go through that information. So I'll leave it up here for a few seconds, and then we'll get started and move on.
Aaron, I'm not sure if we're seeing it. Are you screen sharing?
Should be there. All right, so if you do not see the chat window, we'll need to get that set up. So this is Google Sheets Tips and Tricks YouTube Live, brought to you by the KIC EdTech team. So if you don't see the chat window, make sure that you go through these steps. You click the 3 lines, we like to call that the hamburger, in the top left corner. Click on My Channel, create a channel, and then return back to the KIC.net/kickstart to participate in this YouTube live event. And that's so also, if you'll chat in the window, tell us who you are, so that we can kind of verify, go through that, and kind of know who we're talking to, and then we'll relate back to that for the EQ credit at the end. All right, so we're gonna go and get started with the Google Sheets. And one of the cool things about Google Sheets that you can pull in your data from your forms that you're filling out. So I think we have a few responses in the form that we sent out. So you can see here, this is where you edit the form. So this may look very familiar to you guys. This is the form you just filled out. You can see from here that we have 5 responses on here. So here I can look at the summary of the information, so I can see who I have, how they answer those questions, and then I can also look at individual. But we're not looking at forms today, so we're going to look at the spreadsheet of this. Up here in the top right-hand corner, I have a Google Spreadsheet or Google Sheet button, so I can click on that. It's going to create a new one, and I wanted to call it the same thing as I have the form called, so that I know what spreadsheet it corresponds with, and it'll have responses at the end of the title. I'll show you that in just a second. So I'll go ahead and get that created. So here we can see the responses. At the top, you can see the questions that were asked, and then the responses here, as well as a timestamp. So all that information is there. I don't have to ask for what time they put it in. We can also collect email addresses in that, so I wouldn't have to necessarily ask for email addresses as part of that, but it wasn't collected on this specific form, but we'll cover that later in the forms. So one of the fun things here, if we had another question out here, some of these answers would be cut off, and you can see here that these answers are cut off. So I'll go ahead and show you how you can wrap that text so that it's not cut off. I can read it all very easily and clearly. So I'm going to select this column D. Up here is the text wrapping button. So click on that. I want to wrap my text. So now it puts it all in that one column. I'm able to easily see what it is without having to select that specific field and try to figure out what it says. So if I go back to what it used to look like, I would have to click on that cell and then I could see everything it says as opposed to wrapping that text. And now I'm able to see it all there in one fell swoop instead of having to click on it and then read from the formula bar. One of the other nice things about if you're having a form that has a whole lot of responses and that you want to try to remember what are those what are the different columns, you can freeze that top row. Like right now, it looks like the top row is frozen. So if I scroll all the way down, you can see here I'm at row 108, but my first row is frozen. So it stays there no matter where I scroll. The place to find that is under View, and then you choose Freeze. And so let's say I don't want to freeze any rows. So now I'm going to unselect that. The big thick gray border goes away. Now when I scroll down, I don't see those top rows. So if I want to freeze them back, I can even select up to 3 or 4 rows, go to Freeze, and then freeze 2 rows. So the top 2 are frozen. As I scroll down, those will stay there. You can do the same thing for columns. So if I wanted to freeze column A, I can freeze 1 column. And so now if I scroll to the right, column A stays there, so I can see what time those people put in that information. So it's kind of a nice feature, especially when you have a whole lot of data that you may need to decipher through and understand what it means. Let's see, let me get this back to just the top row frozen. So right now the data looks fun, but obviously just to kind of differentiate a little bit better, I can put some borders around it. So let's say I wanted to put borders around everything. If I click over in the top left-hand corner, that selects all. Then I have my border option here. So I'm going to click on borders. Let's say I want borders everywhere, and then I want them to be yellow. So I select that. Now every single cell has a border all the way around it, plus it's yellow. If I want to change this specific cell, I want to change the color of it, I could select that cell, choose a different color, choose my border, and then choose my color. And now you can see that cell has a border of light blue instead of yellow. So this way you can kind of single out specific information, single out specific data, and you can also fill in that color, the background color of that cell, just to make it stand out a little bit more with both the border as well as the cell fill color. But obviously, whenever you're working with a table of data and you have a lot of information in there, it may be nice to have each row have a different color just to be able to differentiate those. So there's a way to do some alternating colors. So if you go to Format, and then you have the option for alternating colors. So now it kind of sees where my table is. It's going to put a darker color up top to notice those header rows. So if let's say I wanted to go with orange and yellow, man, these are some amazing color schemes I have going on here. You can tell I'm not a graphic design artist. But then I can see I'm able to kind of easily read this data, be able to present it to teachers or staff members, just be able to kind of show it. It looks a little bit nicer in a table. I know multiple Excel documents that I've created. Whenever you have tables, it's easier, this stuff information is easier to read as it's put into these different tables and those kind of things. Let's say we don't necessarily care to see the timestamp if we're wanting to present this data to parents, to the principal, to our leadership team, or even our PLCs. So we have a way to hide the columns or rows, excuse me, or rows. So I can select this column, I can right click on it, and then I can hide the column. So that way that data isn't there when I'm showing. And if I want to hide this, sorry, Angela, I'm going to hide your information that I don't want to necessarily show. So I can hide that, so that way it's hidden from view. If I need it back, there's a little arrow here that I can click one time, that column comes back, and same thing with this row. I can click that information. That information is still there because you definitely don't want, with this form data, you definitely don't want to delete any of the columns because that can mess up how the data comes into the form whenever people are filling it out. So being able to hide those columns whenever you're showing the data is a huge benefit instead of trying to delete the column out altogether. So after going through those 3 or 4 things, what are some of your favorite tips that we've shown so far?
Thank you, Erin. I'm going to pipe in real quick. I heard from our two moderators, and I don't know that we introduced you guys. Christy Harold is here from the EdTech team, and Aaron Snow. He's one of our Genius team members. They are helping with questions in the chat window, and they noted that at the beginning of our YouTube Live, Kickstart Your Learning, it wasn't working, but I think they have it working now. So you guys join in into the chat if you're watching or viewing on your device, and just let us know what you liked best. My favorite was your colors, Erin. That was really, really a bright spreadsheet. So we'll give you a minute to respond, and then we'll move on to the next half. Christy, Erin, are y'all out there? What are they liking?
Hey, Sarah. They're really liking the colors options. Makes it so easy to see those rows.
Okay, awesome. I recently learned about the alternating colors, and that really does make your spreadsheet look professional in a very limited amount of time. You can really, in 3 clicks, make it look nice. So I think I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and show you guys some more features. Don't hesitate to ask questions or respond in the chat. So if you guys will bear with me. Okay. And let me know if you can't see this, but I'm going to go to a spreadsheet that I partially created earlier just because of the sake of time. So here it is. So it probably doesn't make any sense at this point, but I wanted to do a little bit of cell entry and data entry with you so you could kind of see just working. If you're new to working with spreadsheets, this is what it would look like. So let's say I want to make a spreadsheet of a very simple budget. Actually, you know what? Let's do that next. I wanted to show you something first. Sorry about that. Okay, so just disregard all the crazy cell entries there, and we're going to start in cell B1, and I'm going to type in January. And I know many of you are going to love this feature. You are probably used to creating spreadsheets, or at least looking at them with all of your data teams and that kind of thing. Okay, in cell C1, I'm going to type in February, so hopefully you guys can see that. Now, to select a cell, you just click on it, right? But if I want to select a range, I just click in the middle of that cell and drag over. So you can kind of see the bright one is the one that's where I clicked first. And if I wanted to start typing, it would go right in that cell. I do not want to type that. Okay, so I am going to highlight January and February. So I just click and drag across those. You can see they're selected with the shading. Now, if you notice, look carefully in the bottom right-hand corner of the selected range, there is a little blue box. If I hover my mouse on that, there's a very thin, small crosshairs. I hope you guys can see it between the C and the D columns. I'm going to do that again. When you get that, it's going to activate a feature called Autofill. So watch carefully as I drag across. Okay, I know you guys are going ooh and ah at your different locations. It will fill in the data for you. There's certain series kind of built into Google Sheets. And if you enter 2 cells next to each other, and it can be sideways or down, I'm going to do one. Let's just say I'm going to come over to column H and type in a 5. And then below that in row 7, I'm going to type in a 10. I can do the same thing with this. Now, this is obviously numeric. So I have the 5 and the 10. What do you guys think it's going to do? Feel free to chat about it. I am going to use that autofill handle, drag down. You can kind of see where it's going to land with the dotted range there. And voila, it is counting by 5s for me. So an example of how I used this recently, I needed a spreadsheet that had dates of every Tuesday for the next few months. And I was building a little schedule for my team. And honestly, I just had to fill in 2 cells. These boxes that you see on a spreadsheet are called cells, and fill in. And I used that same feature, the autofill feature, to complete my row. I think it was a list, so it was a column of dates. So very, very helpful. I'm actually going to undo that just to kind of clean up my spreadsheet a little bit. Okay, so this is the data I want. Now I'm going to finish what I've started earlier with my budget. So let's pretend I want to capture some expenditures that I had this year. So I'm going to quickly enter that in. And if you're new to spreadsheets or if you're new to Google Sheets, very simple to just type in your data there, press enter or return. In fact, I'm pressing tab to go to the right. Okay, so let's finish up with some numbers there. Now, I'm ready to total the supplies category. So I want to bring up the idea of using a very simple, basic formula. So the way to activate a formula in Google Sheets, very similar to Excel, if any of you have used that in the past. If not, that's okay. You press your equals sign on your keyboard. So that is going to kind of activate that feature. Now, when I do, I'm going to use things called cell references. And I always laugh and think about, I don't know how many of you have played the game Battleship. Remember the rows and the columns? Well, that's what you do here. I'm going to click on B2. B2 is where this 40 lives. The cell reference for that 40 is B2. And you can kind of see it notated here. The orange is the cell reference, the blue is the data. And then I'm going to add that with the plus sign. So I'm just typing that in. I know you guys can't see me, but on my keyboard. And I want to add C2. So I'm going to click on it and then press the plus sign on my keyboard. I'm going to click D2. Now I could type in D2. I could also do it that way. And then add the addition sign. And then I'm going to click on my E2. Now it's kind of showing me in a beautiful color, must be the theme, Erin, for today, but it's showing me that this orange cell reference is referring to this orange cell here, and so forth and so on. Now I want to warn you, whenever you have that function or that formula going on with the equal sign and it's kind of in, I call it formula mode, you don't want to start clicking around in your cells because it will mess you up. So right now I'm just going to press enter and there is the answer. And I know you guys are extremely excited about this, right? So feel free to chat about it. But the reason I love doing it that way with cell references, if February, let's say, was wrong and I really spent $25 that year, that month, if I change that to 25 and press enter, you guys watch the total, the 150. The 150 changes automatically. So you don't want to use numbers, you want to use cell references. Now, you might be thinking, wow, that's awesome, but what if I had a row of 200 numbers to add up or 400 columns? Yes, you're exactly right. That would take forever. So I'm going to delete that. And by the way, before I delete it, notice the 155 totals here, but the formula bar serves a very important function. It shows us what's going on behind the scenes. So I'm going to press delete and both of those will go away. And this time I'm going to show you probably a little bit easier way that you're going to want to do it. I'm going to come over to the right side of the Sheets toolbar and use the Functions tool. In this case, and there's over 400 functions. So obviously today we're not going to go over all of those. We're going to just try to do 2, but they're probably the most commonly used, the sum and the average. So let's start with sum. And it's going to do the same thing we just did, but just a little bit faster. So it's asking me, and this is the way it just does it in spreadsheets, equals sum means I want you to sum up a range of numbers. So we're going to drag across the range. So I just clicked my mouse, held down, let go, and it puts B2 through E2 in there. And I don't have to do anything else. Google Sheets puts the closed parentheses for me. So I'm just going to press enter. And there's my answer. Very cool. Very cool. Now, let's try that with average. I'm going to click where the cell, where I want the answer to live, the cell in which I want the answer to live. So in G2, and I'm going to go back to functions. And this time I'm going to select average. And I wish you guys were here with me or I would make y'all tell me what I'm supposed to do next. I know you guys know. I'm supposed to drag across the range. So B2 through F2, let go of my mouse. Again, I could have just typed that in, B2 : F2. The more you work with these functions, the more proficient you'll be with typing them in and using kind of the syntax that Google Sheets uses. So I'm going to press enter, and there's my answer. Now, I have the total for supplies and I have the average for supplies, but I don't have that same thing for technology, which is in this next row. And I'm sorry, I already had that entered earlier just for time's sake. Well, do you remember what we did with autofill earlier? We were able to create those series of data with months and with the 5 and the 10. Okay, so you can use that same feature, autofill, but kind of in a different way. It's going to take what's in this cell and this function, this formula up here, and make the adjustment to the next row. So watch what happens. It's kind of like magic. It's like your magic button. Okay, I'm going to drag from that little autofill handle down. In this case, I'm only doing one row, but you could do multiple. And voila, there it is. There's my magic. It is taking that same sum function, and instead of referring like this one was referring to row 2, this one is now referring to row 3. So can I do that with average? What do you guys think? Let's see. I'm going to take the fill handle, drag down, and sure enough, there is my average for technology expenditures. So very, very cool, very quick and easy ways to create your spreadsheets. I'm going to stop just real quick before we wrap it up with some other great features. What do you guys like so far, and what do you think you'll use? If you'll just chat in the chat window that you have there to your right, let us know. So Christy, Aaron, what are they responding? Is anyone out there?
You must have them just amazed because we don't have lots of chat going on right now. But your tips were awesome.
Thank you. That's okay. All right. Um, we are going to continue with some last few tips. So let me screen share one more time. Okay. Next, I want to show you guys, this is really super quick, but it's checkboxes, and it's really a fairly new um, item that they've added to the menu in Google Sheets. So I have a little list of names here, and let's say I wanted to put in checkboxes. I'm going to highlight that range, click on Insert, and now there's an option for checkbox. So I know that teachers would love this feature um, because I know you guys are often checking if your students brought in their field trip money or their permission slips or things like that. So checkboxes are awesome, and you can then simply just press delete on your keyboard to get rid of them. So checkboxes is a new great feature. Also, you can create a drop-down menu. So I don't know if you guys can see in my lower left corner, I have some pre-made sheets. So the way I got those is this plus sign, and you can always add a new sheet with that plus sign and have as many as you'd like. Okay, so here I have another list with some titles here, kind of a header row. Okay, so I want to put in a little drop down list of 6 weeks to choose from. You can do that. It's actually in the data validation. So I'm going to click on the cell where I want the answer to live, or actually the list, and go to data and then data validation. And here is where I'm going to say I want a list of items. And over on the right, I'm going to list first 6 weeks, and it tells me to just put a comma between them. Second 6 weeks, third 6 weeks, and we'll just stop there for now. But that's my list. You can play with these other options, like if you want some sort of a message, you can format that and enter all that. I usually don't play a lot with these options, but you can. And you can have help text and all of that. So for time's sake, I'm going to go ahead, click save. And then you can see my little drop down arrow there, and there's how it would work, right? I love that. I think that's so cool. And if you want to take your autofill handle and copy it, that works in this scenario as well. So now I can select my data, and I'll also expand my column size um, from my list. So that's a drop-down list that you can add. Last but not least, let's see if I have another sheet. We wanted to show you one other function. I know we've done average and sum, but there's one that, and this may be specific to Google Sheets, but it's called the Sparkline function. So as soon as I start typing in the word Sparkline, there it is. I'm going to click on it to save myself some typing. It's wanting the range. So Sarah has increased a little bit each month, but wouldn't it be cool to be able to see that in a little graph? Well, you can. So the Sparkline function, and I'm going to copy it just like we learned earlier, can be used to actually embed in your cell a graph. And I just think this would be really awesome to show in teacher conferences, parent conferences, to show the growth, or maybe there's a dip, or visually how that student is doing with their, maybe their reading data or whatever data you might have. So I'm going to make that bigger. And you can always make your rows bigger. Of course, I only got that one. But anyway, these are just a great visual representation of your data. So we are drawing near the end. Does anybody have any questions that Aaron or I can answer?
Hey, Sarah, on the drop down, what does it look like if you type an incorrect option in there?
I believe on that you can allow other options, other cell entries, or not. So let's look at the options real quick. Let me go back to that. So I'm going to just click on this first one and see what options I gave it. It was data validation. Okay, so reject input is where we're not going to allow incorrect answers. This would show a warning, and then this would be the help text. So let's say I want to reject anything other than the options first 6 weeks, second 6 weeks, and third 6 weeks. So I'm going to save that. And then let's say I try to type something. I get this. Now, if I had not changed that, it may just show me a warning. So let's try that. Yeah, this little red guy here is the warning. Does that answer your question, Aaron?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I just want to throw out there that we do have lots of great resources on the KIC website. It stands for Keller Integration and Collaboration, and it's www.kellerisd.net/KIC, KIC. And on that website, if you go to Google and go to Google Sheets, you can find this slideshow that we kind of worked through tonight. I know we didn't use the slideshow as much, but it would show you in a slideshow everything we talked about tonight. And also, if you wanted to back up to the basics, we have a basics Google Sheets slideshow. So that is also on the KIC. In fact, I think I have 1 minute to show you guys. Let me do that real quick. Here is what the KIC website looks like. And if I go to G Suite, G Suite is just the same thing as Google Apps. And I go down to Google Drive. Here I can find the Sheets section of the KIC website. And there I will find the basics slideshow if I just want to walk myself through how to do some of the basic things. And then tonight's slideshow, which we might take some things out, but it's basically what we covered today. Also, if you want to share this information and some of our other Kickstart Your Learning episodes, you can find that under More. And it looks like that. And you can access our YouTube channel. So Aaron, I'm going to turn it over to you. Is there anything else I've left out or we need to cover?
I think that's it. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Aaron and Christy, for managing the chat side. I believe they will be posting the link to the form for the EQ credit, and we'll get that assigned as soon as we can. Thanks for joining.
Aaron, sorry to interrupt you, but can you go ahead and post the EQ link on the video feed from the slideshow, if you don't mind?
Yes, I will do that. So there's the link to get to fill out the form for credit for participating in this YouTube Live.
Thanks, everybody.